Right. Welcome to Passion for Payroll, the podcast. I'm Max.
And I'm Khizar.
And we are here for the passionate payroll pros who build trust. You deliver quietly, consistently, and usually without applause. But we are here for you.
No fluff, no buzzwords, always fun. Just what works and what doesn't, and what you can do about it on a Monday morning.
And if you are passionate about payroll like us, then this is your podcast.
Let's get into it.
Right, Khizar. So, first of all, I need to make notice of that you're not wearing orange, Khizar.
Yeah.
And that's okay, but it's also not okay. What happened to your orange Passion for Payroll vest, Khizar?
Max, the wife struck in this
Oh.
case. So I'm sorry first. Sorry, I know. She thought that it was my winter attire and she packed everything and put it in the storage. So by the time we are recording, I do not have, let's say, the time to pull it out of the storage and bring it. But next time, hopefully, I will be in that orange. And especially with now that we will be supporting your team in the World Cup.
Exactly right, because the Netherlands will win at least one match, but not the World Cup. But hey, speaking of football, or for the US fans, soccer, but I prefer football. You went to a very special game, eh?
Yes. And again, it all comes down to luck. We always talk about luck. So I was lucky that first, we were having the Champions League final between Arsenal and PSG in Budapest this year. And I had been trying for a while because I've never seen a live football game in my life. I've been to very, very huge cricket events, the World Cups ever since I was a child, or the recent PSL that we call it, the league in Pakistan and other countries. But I've never been to a football match, and it was always my dream. So I was applying. The prices were, with this kind of game, the biggest game in Europe, it's crazy. And they were putting us on the waiting list. So it was something that was not happening. But on the last day, in fact, I was doing grocery shopping with the family and I kept on refreshing the app. And luckily, I found a ticket which was suitable, still expensive though. I have to figure out how to
Justify it,
to make up for it. Yes. And then eventually we got to the game, and then it was a fantastic experience. From a football point of view, yeah, it was a strategic game rather than a full-on exciting game like the semifinal, but it was one of the best experiences I had. The atmosphere, like 61,000.
What a first game, Khizar, to see live the Champions League final. But to everyone listening, in case you're wondering, you didn't tune into a football podcast, but we are avid football fans, and it is World Cup season. So, football is a little bit top of mind. But maybe let's pivot to the payroll, our shared
Exactly. But I know that you had an interesting trip. So at the same time, I was in the football stadium watching the match. You were somewhere not in Europe. So help me, tell me about it.
So last week I was in Canada, in Montreal, Montreal, which is, I think, the east coast of Canada. It's supposed to be just a couple of hours drive from New York. I was visiting the National Payroll Institute. So that's kind of the payroll association in Canada. And I attended their payroll conference for the first time. They branded the conference to Payroll University, or Payroll U. And it did feel a bit like university. It were excellent sessions, lots of networking, a great party, I must admit, a fun night. That's how they called it. And it truly was a fun night. I've never seen payroll people dance so intensely as
you'll be surprised. You will be surprised.
Yeah.
I've seen it this in the Christmas parties, but I know that
payroll people know how to party. Wow. But I was there as an attendee to see a lot of keynotes that I'll talk about in a minute. But I also delivered sessions myself. So I did two sessions. The first one, the global payroll process, your 16 steps to success. Of course, related to that process that's in my book, the Global Payroll Manager's Playbook. And NPI was kind enough to order 150 copies of that book.
Very nice.
shipped to Canada. A shout out to Steven Van Alstine, my good friend within MPI, and I hand signed them in the
Wow.
morning before my
Wow.
session. I got cramps in my hands because I always try to add, a personal message to it. But it was amazing to see, a room full of payroll people, 150 of them, all getting my book. And they also got a special envelope with a thank you
Mhm.
note that
Mhm.
my daughter and I wrote with
Amazing.
the Passion for Payroll stickers and yada, yada, yada. And it was
Very
really,
good.
really well received. And I think, it was a fun experience because when I try to do these sessions, it shouldn't just be a boring lecture of me telling how to do payroll. So I try to weave in a couple of jokes and stories. And I did this like Khazar. So I placed a chair like in front of where everyone was seated. It was an empty chair.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
no one really knew what the chair was about. And I was just walking around ignoring the chair. And then like in the middle of the session, I start sitting down on the chair and I was silent for a full minute.
Mm.
And everyone was like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
And then I said, "Oh, now I remember the story." And I was telling a story about a payroll approval process that once happened when everything was in the bank. And I got this email from HR that they added like 2 zeros to a severance amount, and I needed to
Wow. Wow.
um, reject the bank file, and yada yada yada. So that was a nice storytelling. The second session, which was on the morning after the party, Khazar, at 9:45, which was about risk and control in payroll.
Wow.
It was
I
yeah,
think that's the best way to take off a hangover, I think,
right?
right?
And the subtitle was "Put Your CFO and CHRO's worries to rest."
Oh,
Was again a fun experience. I tried to keep everyone awake because I saw some tired people in the audience. But the biggest takeaway I had for them was actually related to a prior episode we did on the global payroll policy. Because
very
I've
nice.
asked them to raise hands to say who has a travel policy within their company. Everyone raised their hands. Who has a clean desk policy? Almost half of them raised their hands. I said, who has a dress code policy? Almost half of them raised their hands. Then I asked, who has a global payroll policy or a payroll policy? No one,
Wow.
no one raised their hands,
But it's
Hazar.
also happening in that part of the world. So we thought
Yeah,
that it's something that is affecting like we were talking about this back in Spain,
yeah,
right?
it's
And
universal. And
wow.
then I said, but most of you like own at least 60% of operating expense of your company.
Mm.
And you do not have a policy for that, but you have a policy about how to dress at work and how to travel. I'm like, that's insane.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
everyone came, well, not everyone, of course, but a lot of them came up to meet me after the session and during the networking to say, that was like an epiphany moment. Like we never thought about it that way. We are going to implement a policy. So yeah, you need to because it kind of solidifies your position within the company and it strengthens your relationship with finance, HR, and others to say, hey, do you remember? We have this
Mm,
policy. It says that
mm.
you need to do this, and I will do that, and together we'll make sure there's a positive pay experience. Like, oh yeah, so yeah, it's insane. But
Yeah.
no, so that was really nice. But I also get inspired by a lot of other people. So there were two keynotes that I specifically really, really enjoyed. So one was from Daniel Lewis, and I think
Mhm.
he's the owner of a specific tea company brand. And he was telling his personal story, very, very funny. But what he did, he tailored it to payroll. And he talked about, Khazar, mind you, the pop.
Mm.
And the
Mm.
Pope was the power of personality. And he gave this example where he first, with his wife, was selling tea on the
Mm.
streets. Like, oh, I have this amazing tea brand. You need to taste it. And everyone was like, yeah, whatever. There's another tea brand, right? I'll just stick
Yeah,
to my
true.
English breakfast or my Earl Grey or whatever. And then he said, "No, I need to kind of pivot this because he is a very extrovert like
Mhm.
me, and he's artistic." And then he said, "I'm gonna do something different." So he ended up just dressing up like Superman or a tiger,
Okay.
and he was getting a lot of attention. So the product was the same, but the delivery was different.
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
brought that analogy to payroll people to say, "Hey." your message is kind of fine, but the way that you deliver it, that's what you may need to pivot. And then I was sitting there, the guy in orange, because I was known as the guy in orange there. People even came up to me to start to say, "How many orange shirts did you pack? Or did you wear the same one every day?" Well, rest assured, I pack loads of them, so I have a fresh shirt in every day. But it's such a simple thing to stand
Yeah,
out, just to be the guy in orange, and just to be you. That was kind of his message, the power of personality. And
amazing.
he also had two quotes, and I have this open, that really resonated. The first one was, "The mind is like a parachute. It
Mm,
only works when it's open."
nice.
And I'm like, yes, that's it. So,
Very
and I
nice.
took it
Very
on
nice.
board when I was, attending other sessions where sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm not that energized. I don't really like the speaker or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, no, no. I need to open my mind because there must be some nuggets here that I can
Yeah.
take on board. And it actually helped.
This
This,
is actually a very nice one, especially
yeah,
for payroll professionals uh, who historically we have discussed this, and in the past, we have been very, let's say, curtailed
yeah,
or
yeah.
have been in environments that have been curtailed to just deliver payroll accurately and timely. But this is a very nice message.
It is. It is. And the second one was more to, me as a business owner, to say the secret to succeeding in business is in the
Mhm.
first two letters of business. Be you.
Wow, that's a nice one.
Right? I'm
That's a
like,
nice
yes.
one.
So be authentic and be you, which, I think we always are on the podcast.
Yeah.
But it kind of, confirmed the approach to just be you. Now, the other one was on Beliveau. I hope I pronounced that correctly because it's a French
Mhm.
name. And she was the CRO and the experience lead at Cirque du Soleil,
Mhm.
and she said at every day they run approximately 20 live shows every day across the world.
Wow.
And she talked about how that experience needs to be the same everywhere, right? And it's it's
Yeah.
it's planned until the tiniest detail. Then she, just like Daniel Lewis, pivoted it to make it very payroll specific. And I've
Mhm.
never seen keynote speakers that are not in payroll make
Mhm.
their talk very payroll specific. But she did that. And then she said, what we do, we design Cirque du Soleil for trust. And that's basically, we are also in the trust business, Khizar, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's a foundation for.
Yeah. Right. Organizational trust. And then she gave this framework that I will likely write about later in a post, or somewhere. I'll include it in my Passion for Payroll Live program. It says, it starts with anticipation, then it's arrival, then it's
Mm.
immersion, then it's exit, and then it's echo.
Oh,
And I, I liked every step, like those 5 moments in trust, but the echo part is what resonated most, because that's what we talk about in payroll brands, right? What's your brand? If someone wants to leave, or someone needs to leave the company, they don't want to have a bad payroll experience, right? Because that will echo
yeah.
into other people. So the echo part really resonated. So that's a bit about the Canadian conference.
Mhm.
But on Thursday, and it was about 1 to 2 p.m. local time in Canada. So it was 6 hours later, so about 7,
Mhm.
8. That's when the Global Payroll Alliance Awards started,
Yes. Yes.
in
Drum roll,
Barcelona.
man.
Yeah, yeah,
Drum
yeah.
roll, man.
And I wasn't there because I was in Canada. And I
Yeah.
knew I was shortlisted for the award of Payroll Consultant of the Year.
Okay.
And by the way, for those who've never entered the awards, you need to self-nominate you. So you yourself need to nominate you, which is kind of uncomfortable. But I thought, okay, let me do it. But you had to complete like this 4-page form with all details and include like references of others to confirm, what your submission is. And the short list wasn't very short.
Of course.
Let me just count: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 9 people on the short list, so I must imagine there were lots of entries, with people from the Lepington Group, EY, Grant Thornton, Lace Partners, the Payroll Collective, and others, and then also me. Long story short, I won. I won the award of Payroll Consultant of the Year, Gezor, while I was
Amazing.
in
Yes.
Canada.
Yes. And we were all celebrating in Europe for you while you were either
Yeah.
sleeping or delivering keynotes.
Although I was now called.
Although you were, I saw you immediately, someone told you, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Send a
Yeah,
screenshot in one of the groups, and yeah, you were like, "Oh, I won!" So
yeah.
that was an amazing achievement, and for all the listeners and our followers, I think it's something that you have been in the business like what as a solo consultant,
Yeah.
less, almost less than a couple of years or even lesser, right?
Less than 2
And it's,
years. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, less than 2 years, and to have that kind of achievement and recognition is amazing. So it means that you're doing something very nice.
Right, I must be onto
Going
something.
and going back to the point that you were mentioning from the conference, the takeaway, you're doing something different. You're being you. Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's
Yeah.
how we have a live example with us in the payroll business. Yeah, and not everyone should be a consultant or can be a consultant,
Oh,
but at least just be yourself, right?
that's it.
And yeah,
It's the biggest recognition that
yeah.
someone recognizes you for being you. So anyone who's listening, if you need a payroll consultant, then you know where to find.
Now you have a recognized,
Exactly.
awarded consultant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Enough about me. So, Khizar, we always do, as the listeners know, we do a
Nice.
poll. And I released a poll that's very dear to my heart last Monday. And I ran the same poll about 2 years ago. So
Oh,
2024. And I thought of redoing it now because maybe, the landscape has changed. So I asked the network, how many unique data sources do you have per payroll cycle? And I gave 4 voting options as per usual. So the first option was 1 to 3 unique data sources per
mm,
cycle, or 3 to 5, 5 to 7, or 7 or more.
more. Yeah.
Now, 18% said 1 to 3,
Yeah.
very low
Wow.
percentage. 25% said 3 to 5.
Yeah.
Sorry, 25% said 3 to 5. 23% said 5 to 7. And
Mm. Wow.
32% said 7 or more. So that means that 55%, more than half, has 5 or more
More data source.
unique data sources per payroll cycle. Now, before we get into what this means, and I'll ask you, Khazar,
Yeah.
is how does this relate to 2024? So the results in 2024 were that 43% said 7 or more and
Mm.
22% said 5 or more. So that's in
Uh-huh.
total 65% said 5 or more, and now it's 55%. I would
So,
say it's more or less
yeah.
similar.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Khazar, this gave you lots of time to think about the response. So
Yeah.
what does this mean?
I mean, firstly, I was not surprised that the landscape has not shifted,
Mm,
or what we see as a reflection is also something we practically experienced, right?
yeah.
And it's a pity as well with all the technologies, the systems,
Right?
everything. If we still have, let's say, five or more data sources, and more than half of your population who's doing payroll or have send a response is saying that we still have to collect data or get data to our payroll systems
Everywhere.
via from everywhere, whether it's an Excel, whether it's a time tracking tool, or whether it's through your master data. So we also need to, for listeners who are just beginning, Max, what could be the different ones? Like I mentioned three at least. Like the Excels are always there, manual
Mm,
files. Then there is your corporate finance tool which can be used for traveling or other allowances or expenses. Then there could be time and attendance. There could be, like I said, time tracking
yeah.
tool. They can be from, let's say, we used to have this in the past, an administrative tool where the BIKs would fly in from, right?
Yeah.
So 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 those kind of data sources, and if it resonates that it's, then people who say that payroll is a push of a button, this is for them as well. That it's not a push of a button; it's multiple
Oh,
buttons being pushed to
let's
make it
let's not
happen.
talk about the clicking button. No.
Yeah,
No, wait,
yeah,
last week I just pulled up a document
yeah,
that I had from a global payroll manager role in the
yeah.
past. I had 10.
Wow.
unique data sources.
Yeah.
Let me tell. So we had reports from Workday because there wasn't like an
Mhm.
integration. So we ran reports from Workday, 11 in total. But okay, I'll count it as one. Then we had
Because the Workday was your master data, right?
yeah,
So for
correct.
people listening, it could be SuccessFactor,
Yeah,
Workday, XYZ, SAP
whatever.
in the past for us. Yeah.
And those were kind of HR related reports.
Yeah.
The second one was expense claims from
Yes.
Workday because that was
Yeah.
used as expenses. The
Okay.
third one was a commission file based on
Uh-huh.
kind of Salesforce data,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
ended up, of course, in Excel.
Yeah.
Then we had equity from
Mm,
E-Trade, the
mm,
fourth one. Then we had Forma, which was kind of a cash and non-cash reimbursement, the fifth one. Then we had the sixth one, which were local benefits like
yeah.
medical,
Yeah.
pension, right, that type of thing. The seventh one was Carrot, a family building benefit, benefit in kind.
Uh,
The eighth one was relocation expenses for
yeah.
expats, which we got, of course, in Excel from Grable. The ninth one was leave of absence, which were
Yeah.
separate from the HR team. Of course, in a spreadsheet. And
Yeah.
then the last one, the catch it all, were tickets from ServiceNow.
Uh,
So 10 freaking unique
yes.
data sources.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then leadership, Khazar, asks us, you need to automate.
Yeah.
I said, okay, how on earth do you want me to automate this? Yes, we could do Workday
Mhm.
PG. That's fine. That solves one out of 10 unique different
Exactly.
data
Exactly.
sources,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Okay. And
let's just pause for a moment, Khazar, for everyone is
yes,
listening.
yeah. Because for everyone who is not aware, so we Excel is the easiest way. You mentioned 10, and
Yeah.
none of the time you mentioned integration at
No,
that time.
no.
None of the time you mentioned integration. Now, for let's say the Workday file, you can integrate, or a success factor file or something that between global systems you can integrate between your payroll.
Yeah,
Even expense modules which are global, but every integration or automation costs you money.
exactly. Yes.
And it also depends on the population that you're doing. So if you're doing a payroll for an entity which has, let's say, 100 people, with these 10 data sources, if you are integrating, that would cost you a lot of money to run a
Oh,
payslip, right? Your
yeah,
cost per payslip goes through the roof. So even if management has this ambition and everyone has this ambition to automate something, they need to understand first, the systems need to talk to each other.
yeah,
Secondly, the amount of cost per, let's say, the value it brings to the organization. Because you remember we were discussing about a payroll transformation recently,
mm,
and it was not even making sense to integrate something.
no,
Uh, Between the master data of a payroll system versus the versus your main source of information from HR, because even for an organization of 400-500 people, because it was very expensive, it
yeah,
would have not been competitive if you are also running an RFP as a vendor or as a supplier, and it doesn't add the value. One thing we have also not discussed is the outbound, which we can
oh,
later say for a
okay,
different
yes,
topic. But yeah, still, I mean, no matter how much technology around payroll is
uh,
evolving, uh, other processes, but this is still an area. So I'm not
yeah,
surprised. It's from 65%, it's down to 55%, but still, it's
yeah. And
long way
what
to
I
go.
would kind of encourage the listeners to do, who also have these many data sources, is make one slide to show all of the data sources, the monetary value of transactions, the volume of transactions, to just
Mhm.
show, hey, this is the landscape. Um,
Yeah.
but then we talk about automation, but I think automation is just an outcome of
Yeah.
discussion, because what we try to achieve, we want to be efficient, right? We want to kind of reduce
Mhm.
costs, reduce
Mhm.
effort to do more with the same.
Yeah.
And we want effectiveness. So we want the data to be accurate, because we can't run
Uh,
an accurate payroll if we
yeah.
have inaccurate data. Yada, yada, yada. But then I think the meaningful discussion is, if you have those data sources, then what I used to do is just list 4, or maybe nowadays we have
Mm.
5 ways of kind of transforming that input data into payroll inputs. Because mind you,
Mm.
all of those data sources that I told you are rarely in the format or the
Yeah.
currency
Yeah.
that you need it to be in.
That's a very lengthy and interesting topic that we should have
Yeah.
on
We
how
sh-
to cleanse the data that we receive from these 10 different
yeah.
sources or make it our own. Because, like you said, I, in the past as well, when I was doing payroll myself, half of the time, processing the input was not the problem.
No.
Making it processable
Exactly.
was the problem.
That's the step, right? So
Yeah,
it's not about all the sources, but then you
yeah,
have all the sources,
yeah,
and you need to somehow make sense out of it so you could either
exactly.
enter it or load it. And that
Yeah,
loading is just file, load,
yeah.
success, no errors. It's like a minute of work.
Exactly, exactly. And even the output, when you have the data in your own, let's say, format, or
Yeah,
even when you are reconciling the output, it is not that long in if you were doing it from the source of the file. So I
exactly.
I remember those nightmare days
Oh,
or
and the
times when we used
spreadsheet
to.
crashes, right? When you're
Exactly.
so,
Especially if you have one spreadsheet which is compiling everything for the
yeah, yeah.
vendor. Because even I remember a couple of years ago, Max, a lot of service providers or payroll tools did not have the functionality to even have upload files. I remember we had people punching in the data that was
Oh,
coming through an
yes.
Excel from. So
Two
that's another
screens.
level of complexity. Exactly, exactly. So again, this is a very interesting topic, not only for people who are working towards automation or finding solutions to reduce the number of data
Yeah.
points, but also for people, like I said, who think that payroll is just a push of a
No,
button.
no, no. Let's not go there. No, but I think, you see a lot of transformation initiatives, vendor
Mm,
consolidation, vendor swap outs, and you do RFQ,
mm,
PI,
mm.
whatever request you do. I think we need to increase the focus on the pre-payroll part because
Yeah.
my
Oh,
polls also show that about 60 to 70% find the pre-payroll process most challenging. That's also the process in the calendar
yeah,
that they spend most time on.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, uh, yet we don't focus enough on the pre-payroll part. We kind of ignore
Yes,
it. And then we say, oh, there needs to be a pre-built integration from Workday, SuccessFactors,
yes.
Oracle, Hybot. That's great, but it's one data source. What about
Exactly.
the rest? What
What
about the
about
rest?
this? What
Right?
about it?
And then what I do, which also in my book and in my programs, I give kind of four, but now five options, as I said, of
Mm,
transferring data. The first one is manual data entry. Let's face
yeah,
it, right? Data
yeah,
is entered manually. The pro is, you have high control for small
yeah,
volumes, and it's useful for kind of one-off
yeah.
or infrequent entries. The con naturally is that it's prone to error, right? And data flies around. Then you have
Time consuming. Yeah,
data uploads, just
yeah.
file uploads, right?
Fine.
ADP Global View, spreadsheet loaders, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Um, so you at least load it, which of course is less prone to error. It's more efficient, but it still requires some
Yeah.
manual intervention. Then you have the old school SFTP, the Secure
Yes.
File Transfer Protocol,
Putting the file in a folder.
dropping it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it's a bit more secure than data
Yeah.
uploads because there's not a person doing it,
Yeah.
but it does require IT setup, and it's perceived to be a little bit outdated these days.
Yes.
Because what was introduced, Khazar, as the silver bullet, the
Exactly.
API, the application programming interface, is kind of a direct, almost near real
Yeah.
time kind of exchange, highly automated.
Yeah.
But both systems need to, speak
Talk
to
to
each
it.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
API addressed. What is the other one? API. Um, so that's great. But now we also have AI.
Yeah.
And I know we are both not the AI experts, but we
Yeah.
are payroll experts.
Expert. Yeah.
I have seen beautiful AI applications to do that kind of the between the data sources and the uploads or the
Mm-hmm.
process do kind of the magic. So, and I want to give a shout out to Data Scaler because they also kind of shared the
Mm-hmm.
post. And that's what they focus on. And they've just
Uh-huh.
announced a strategic partnership with Strada, who used to be, what were they before this? They were Allied, they were Northgate, Arinzo,
Mm.
and there was some name in between, anyways. Um, So they are trying to solve that piece of the puzzle. And I think that's the right thing to do, because the
Yeah.
poll shows 55% has 5 or more data sources. And
Yeah.
that's also where the payroll nightmare sits, I think.
Exactly. And this is good that at least the focus is uh, is shifting on solving these problems, right? Like
Yes.
when you run a poll, the idea is to not only take feedback from our community in payroll, but also see that, okay, these are our pain points, or the ones that you mentioned, or
Yeah.
yourself, or people who are professional running companies or softwares, or they can use these polls or these, let's say, pain points for the payroll professionals and start working on them, rather than having too many similar systems which are doing too many similar things. You would rather invest and put your mind and open your parachute to fix
Exactly.
that, to fix these problems. And again, hopefully, when we're talking in 4 years' time, Max, this number comes down to
I really
25%.
hope so. So I'm
I
gonna
you
make it a biannual thing. And I've, by the way, also seen Papaya with Anat. They've
yeah,
also released type of a solution that solves this part. Of course,
yeah,
Payzar that I work for, they have a specific HR Connect module. I think
mm,
Payslip also has some. So there is development in
yeah,
this area, but I think
uh-huh,
it's not the norm yet.
yeah.
So I hope that this will be top of mind. Okay, well, Khizar, I think that kind of
Set up.
yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
All right, good. Well, then, that's a wrap on Passion for Payroll, the podcast.
If you're passionate about payroll as we are, follow me and Max on LinkedIn for the polls, the stories, and just talk and real fun.
Exactly. And by the way, the podcast is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, also Deezer now, Amazon
Amazon.
Music. So basically, you can't not listen to our podcast.
To our podcast.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, guys. Until next time, friends.
Bye bye.